Hey guys, welcome back. I am continuing on chapter 16. I know I'm doing like baby bites, but this is a whole lot of information to be giving out. And unfortunately, we're not able to always cut the doll as we talk and all that. So today I'm covering pages, starting on page 382. We're going to talk about there's 4 basic haircuts. Can those be combined? Yes. Can they be over-directed? Yes. So we can change things up to create what we want to, but what we really need to know are the 4 basic cuts so that then we can start making modifications to them. There is a blunt haircut, there is a graduated haircut, there is a 90-degree haircut, which is known as a layered haircut or a high elevation cut, and then there is a long layered haircut. So those are your basic 4. To start off with a blunt haircut, it says in our textbook, all the hair comes to a single hanging level, forming a weight line. The weight line is a visual line of the haircut, which ends up with the hair hanging all together. A blunt haircut is referred to also as a zero elevation cut because there is no elevation nor over direction. There's no over direction because when you cut this haircut, we want the hair to fall in its natural fall. So the tablecloth is falling off the table all the way around the circle. Can our finger angle change in a 0-degree haircut? Absolutely. If I go diagonal back, I will create this page boy. I could stay on a horizontal all the way across and around the perimeter, or I can go from horizontal to diagonally forward and create an A-line bob without any graduation. And this is a great haircut for people that don't want to style their haircut a whole lot or have a lot of challenges with styling. We'll also do this haircut this week, and I'll show you 2 versions. One will be an undercut and one will be just using the 0-degree elevation. So we got that to look forward to. My second haircut is a graduated haircut. And I think of that as gradual elevation. I'm not elevating very high. The elevator's not going up very high. Graduated haircut is a slow or immediate buildup of the weight line, causing the cutting the hair with low tension, low elevation, and you can cut it with over direction. But this is a 45-degree or low elevation 45-degree cut. It is cut with over direction because all the hair is brought out of its natural fall into the center back. This haircut, on the other hand, is also 45 degrees, but it's been elevated where it naturally falls, so you have this wedge or weight line around the perimeter. Okie dokie? So there is that. There is a layered haircut, which is known as a 90-degree haircut, and the hair is cut at a higher elevation, usually at 90. Layered haircuts usually have less weight than a graduated cut. In a graduated cut, the ends appear to be closer. In a layered haircut, the ends appear to be further apart. Layers create movement and volume in the hair by releasing weight. And this will be known also as a uniform layered haircut because all of my hairs are exactly the same length throughout the haircut. So it creates pretty much a ball. Not always the prettiest haircut on Deborah, but I can take this same principle and make a fun short pixie. My men's haircuts are based on this as well. So this is a 90-degree haircut. Also, this one is as well. It's left longer. It's elevated at 90, and my finger angle sweeps out. So I get lots of flowing layers in this. And I have face framing, but this also is cut at a 90. The 4th haircut is a long layered haircut, and I did a demo on this the other day. Basically, the hair is elevated out. The length falls out like that. It's cut up to here. And then we can elevate it over the head like that way. And then I get a long layered haircut. And this actually isn't the final doll. this one is. So you can see this a little better. We've got all the layers up in here, but our perimeter is still at 0. So let me do that again where you can actually maybe see that better in that video, since it's already been pre-cut the other day. So be sure to watch some of the haircutting demos that I've recorded as well. There we go. Back here, we added no face framing, so I don't want to get in there. There we go. The perimeter length falls out. The hair comes straight up. So this hair is 180 degrees. This hair is at 90. So I'm going to take it over the head shape. My finger angle will be parallel with the wall, and the hair will go from short to long. This used to be known back in the old days as a long layered gypsy cut. You'll see this in old videos with Stevie Nicks. She had this haircut for a long time. Okay, that got that. So that got me all the way to 388. So the next thing is talking about curly hair. Curly hair does cut differently. I'm going to go through the bullet points. Well, excuse me, I'm not the best reader out loud, so we'll get through this. Curly hair can oftentimes appear shorter when it dries. There is a shrinking effect. So when we cut curly hair, we definitely want to use the wide teeth of the comb. We don't want to pull a lot of tension on that because it will spring load back at us. So we want to keep that very careful. We also want to be careful not to cut the hair too short. Since there is a shrinkage factor, we can always cut more off. We can't glue it back on. One thing in curly hair, it helps to cut it damp or wet, because a lot of times if you're cutting curly hair dry, it starts frizzing up and growing and becoming very difficult on you. Curly hair graduates differently, so a lot of times a 0-degree haircut will look like a 45 because the curls jump up and lift up. You can see that in your textbook on 389. The blonde haircut there on illustration 1693 really looks like a graduated haircut. So we may not want to elevate as high. Also, too, the curly hair naturally graduates itself, and curly hair has a lot of volume. So sometimes the top layer, we may not want to elevate as high because we need some weight on the top so it doesn't stick up. So that's why we don't always elevate super high layers for curly hair. That way it's got some weightiness to hold it down. In general, please don't use a razor on curly hair. It shreds it and it frizzes it really bad. She will not be happy with you. Also, choose texturizing techniques for curly hair. One thing I don't use on curly hair a lot of times are my texturizing shears. That also shreds it. One thing about curly hair, ends need friends. So I don't want to texturize the ends or I'll get frizziness. If I should need to debulk my, my customer, I can either notch cut, which means I point the shears directly into the section and cut, or I can do like what I do when I do highlights, and I can weave out hair just like this and then cut. I definitely want to be below the bend of the hair, or the hair will stick out. So I'm going to take my hair, blouse it, and see where my bend is. I would go below the bend and weavy, 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 and then I would cut that hair. So whatever's hanging out here, we'll take and debulk that hair. You can always debulk more later, so just be very careful on that. And that basically kind of covers the curly hair. On 390, we talk about bangs. We can cut diagonal bangs. We can cut rounded bangs. We can cut all sorts of different bangs. Please read all through those directions. I'll give you a couple demos when we're doing the haircuts on how to cut bangs, but be sure to read all that information. My main thing to you when you are cutting bangs a lot of times is stand in front of your client. If you're standing off to the side, you're not going to get evenness. Also, a lot of times I will cut bangs wet, dry them, and then retrim them. Don't go crazy on it. Also, have your customer sit still, keep her head in place. Actually, even have her close her eyes and not talk. You don't want her to be raising her eyebrows and moving around a lot. You are coming at her with a pair of shears. So have her close her eyes, have her relaxed. A lot of times also, whatever I'm not cutting, I'm going to pull out of the way and clip it out of the way so I will not be cutting hair that doesn't live in the bang area. So those are a few hot tips on that. Be sure to read that in the book. They talk about razor cutting on 392. A couple of things on that. Always use a guard. We need a featherweight razor when we are doing razor cuts on people. Do not use a straight razor. Also, always use a new blade every time you do a razor cut. They dull out, and there's nothing worse than cutting a razor cut with a dull blade. It shreds the hair again and makes a noise, and it does not good on the cuticle. Also, when doing a razor cut, please cut it wet. It is best to cut on wet hair with a razor because otherwise it frizzes the hair and it pulls the hair. Also, always work with your razor on an angle. So you definitely don't want to take it straight in. You want it on a diagonal. So you're chipping away basically at the hair versus just whopping it off. So there's a few things on that. Razor cuts give you a softer appearance overall. And you can see all that and some different demos on that on 392. There are different cutting techniques with this. We talk about, and the book talks about slide cutting. So slide cutting is great for facial fringe. You can either cut it by hand or you can slide cut it, meaning you're taking your shears, opening them, and sliding them down the hair. Definitely works better on wet hair. That is slide cutting. You can also, if you were wanting to, you can slide cut on the top as well. I could take this section of hair and slide my shears right up that section. And you'll see those illustrations on page 393. That's slide cutting. I don't happen to have a super short doll here. Let's try her. But there is scissor over comb. Basically, I do scissor over comb on my shorter hair because I can't get my fingers in there anymore, but I'm just going to take my shears and my comb and I'm going to work in combination. I'm going to work in a smooth lifting angle. So your comb becomes your fingers, it becomes your elevation if you go in at 45 or if you go in at 90 to the head shape. I work in the bevels of the head, especially on men's haircuts. So, and stand in front of that position. But I do a lot of scissor over comb work on men's cuts. I use a lot of texturizer over shears on men's cuts and pixie cuts, things like that. So that's a technique used. Anytime there is a illustration on 394 of scissor over comb, so you can kind of see that as well. When talking about texturizing shears or texturizing in general, texturizing is this process of removing excess bulk without shortening the length. We also are blending in sometimes certain haircuts. You can see scissor marks, lines, things like that. So sometimes we need to blend those haircuts and take those scissor lines out and things like that. You can do that with your texturizing shears, or you can also take and do texturizing by point cutting, meaning you elevate. I'm going to elevate this hair, I'm going to hold it in place, and I'm going to point cut into those ends. If I go into a diagonal position, I'm cutting off up more hair. If I'm going straight up and down vertical, I'm just texturizing. One technique, one guy showed me a long time ago, is take it, fist it, fan it, and then point cut it. So I'm opening and closing the shears on the very points of the hair. Notch cutting, on the other hand, would be going into the hair. So I'm going to watch the bend of the hair, and I'm going to point my shears right into the mid shaft of the hair and cut little pieces out. So this will do that as well. So that is notching and point cutting. And those are two different texturizing techniques. And the idea of taking your shears on the angle or straight in, you can see that illustration on $3.95 in your book. There's other words using effilating, slicing, carving. A lot of times you're doing that same sliding action. The shears are just opening and closing. Be sure to read that and look over that. With texturizing, you can do the texturizing with your razor. You can do it with your, the razor, your texturizing shears. You can even do the texturizing with your clippers or your trimmers. So you have lots of options in that. If you look at page 399, you'll see the three girls on the top page are done with shears. Someone has turned around and texturized those haircuts on the bottom three pictures of the page to give you an idea of what texturizing looks like versus as a blunt geometric haircut. The chapter goes on to talk about using your clippers and trimmers, and you can use your clippers and trimmers with the guards. You can use them scissor over comb or clipper over comb, trimmer over comb. They discuss that a whole lot in your chapter. The last thing they talk about is if you're doing beard and mustache work or eyebrows, be sure to get a comb in there as kind of a guard between your client instead of just freehanding it. So that's one suggestion they give. Also, in the back of the textbook, they break up all the haircuts into diagrams, so you can watch those and check those out. And I will be doing some more haircutting videos, actual techniques and stuff as we go along this week. So, thank you for your attention today. I enjoyed this. We've kind of covered chapter 16 now. We've kind of did a bulk run through here at the end. Any questions, be sure to post those on the comments or anything like that. If it's not understandable, I can always go back. And I will see you later on to do a 45-degree haircut, a 45-degree layered haircut variation. I'll show you some arch bangs. I'll show you some diagonal bangs. We'll cut a 90-degree haircut. We'll do this Jennifer Aniston haircut. So we'll have as much fun, and I'll show you some different tricks on cutting hair. Thank you very much. Bye.